Welcome to the Wandering Tangent Podcast. I'm BJ, with me is Jeff and Gary. Today we're going to talk about the 1978 superhero movie, Superman. Lots of saying super in there, I guess.
Superman.
So I'm just going to throw something out right away.
Mm-hmm.
How did they decide what's the term? The credit order on this movie? Because like Christopher Reeve was like the third, and like the lady who plays Lois Lane was like halfway down. It's like top billing was Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman.
Well, those were the big draws at the time, weren't they? Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman were huge at that point.
Was Gene Hackman huge? I feel like this is like one of his big breaking movies. There was other things before this then.
Yeah, I thought so.
Well.
Wasn't he like in a whole bunch of World War II movies or something like that right before this? Let me see.
Oh no.
No, I'll go look.
We've already engaged the trivia now. But Marlon Brando, though, huge name. And he did such a good performance, I think, in this movie.
So since we're talking about the very beginning of this movie, so why did they have General Zod and company in this movie?
Okay, now I don't know this for a fact. I should have done more research, but I think that this movie's been modified later on. The original theatrical release didn't have them, I think, but perhaps I could be wrong.
that caught me by surprise because my son was watching it with me and he was like, "Who's the villain in this one?" I'm like, "It's Lex Luthor," and he's like, "No, it's not. It's General Zod." And then I'm like, "No, it's Lex Luthor." And then the first thing you see is General Zod and company, and I'm like,
what?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, you start this movie and you think, "Wow, I'm on the wrong movie. This is Superman 2."
Like, I was thinking the same thing, like, I'm over, like, I didn't know it was just, like, a Star Trek motion picture / Wrath of Khan situation where, well, I don't know this to be true, but it seems like more people prefer Superman 2 over the original Superman, I think. I could be wrong. I have no scientific bias, or not bias, basis in this outside of the number of times I watched each one of these movies growing up. Seems like my family watched 2 more than the original.
Yeah, the second one's good because now you have got full equivalent to Superman fighting Superman.
It seemed really, really weird to establish the villain of the second movie in the first 5. Okay, I shouldn't say like the first 5 seconds, because like the first 5 minutes of this movie is like swooshing credits.
Yeah, so I want to say it wasn't in the original cut, and then later on they added in the scene for the DVD release or something like that. I should have done more research, but
I don't know if we should be saying that as fact, because like Brando was in those scenes, and I don't think
I'm not stating it as a fact. Yeah,
it's been so long since I've seen these movies. I don't remember Brando being in the second one, but I could be terribly wrong.
Yes, he was in the second one. In fact, that scene that you see is in the second as well. So that's the reason why I'm saying that, because Superman 2 starts out the same way generally as Superman 1, even with the same scenes of the trial of the 3 naughty people and all that.
Doesn't make a lot of sense, but whatever. I'm not an editor.
I think they just loved their scenes. They loved that scene so much. They're like, let's put this in the first one too. But yes, maybe bad choice. I get that. I actually agree. It is kind of confusing.
I guess there's like 3 different versions of this movie. I guess we should have coordinated which one we watched. I just watched like what I assumed was the theatrical release, because it's the one that was the one you didn't have to pay more for on Amazon.
I watched the same version. I was assuming everybody was going for the cheapest one they could find.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was multiple versions.
Well, I just know that, but I knew there was more than one version of Superman 2, but when I was looking at Superman, I saw the main one, and I saw like the Superman Extended Cut and like Superman Ultimate Cut. It's like, how many cuts are there?
Well, speaking ahead to other things, Superman 3 is, I think, an underrated movie. It's cheesy.
Is that the one with Richard Pryor, or is that the one with Nuclear Man, or is that the same?
I think it's Richard Pryor is number 3, and it's funny. It's funny. He's funny in it, and it's not as serious as a movie, though. Superman 2 is probably your more serious film with great action sequences, but Superman 3 is more quirky and funny. And the Superman 4 is just the reason why they stopped. Is probably the best way to put it. Like,
Superman 4 is the one that not even Jeff likes.
Well, I laugh at it, but the villain in that one just doesn't work. They bring him in, Lex Luthor.
Isn't he like a combination of a whole bunch of atomic missiles that they threw into the sun or something like that?
Something like that. Lex Luthor creates him with this scheme, which that in itself is not super believable. It probably came straight out of the comic book, but the way it plays out in the movie, perhaps not.
Maybe, but it's the one where it becomes like a Captain Planet episode.
Yeah.
And Superman just takes away all the nuclear weapons from the entire world in that one. Flies around and collects them all, which I sort of disagree with a little bit, because in this movie, it sets up Superman, and one of the caveats that his father tells them is that he's not actually to interfere with the Earth people. He's supposed to be an example to them, but not interfere with them.
But then he does.
And there's scenes where he goes back to his father in his Fortress of Solitude, and he says, "It just felt good, and I got carried away." Yeah. So he does push the boundary of that.
Like, I guess we might as well talk about that now. So he goes back in time.
Yeah.
And then he goes back in time, and he prevents just the part of the earthquake that kills Lois? ?
He could have done more than that, and they just didn't show it.
No, because they, like, on the radio, or I guess not on the radio, but like he still had dropped off Jimmy in the middle of nowhere, which leads me to assume that everything else had happened as it had happened.
He just went back to his last save point and then played through again.
So, the one thing I did laugh about, I don't know how deeply we want to dwell on this outside of maybe a passing reference, but I do believe that the concept of time travel, of Superman going to the past by going backwards really fast, I think that was about the same scientific idea we had when we attempted to build a time machine in Gary's garage when we were like 8.
Yeah. It's from what I understand, this comes from Superman's golden age of comics. A lot of golden age stuff was like that. For instance, in that comic series, Jimmy Olsen has a watch that emits a sound. Now, BJ, it's a sound that Superman can hear from the other side of the galaxy. A sound, mind you. Jimmy Olsen pushes the button on this watch and it'll call Superman, and Superman will show up anytime. And he can hear this from the other side of the galaxy, and he can show up at any time, right?
Well,
a sound.
You see, you just have to break out the Star Trek logic. You know, the watch inverts the deflector shield in and shoots out tachyon rays, right?
So
to carry the sound across space.
What I actually think that is going on with Superman, this is going to be, okay, this is a discussion probably between me and Jeff where we're going to get super nerdy here in a second. I don't think that Superman is actually exerting, when I watched this movie, I don't think that Superman was actually exerting feats of strength or capability. I think what Superman was actually doing was using some sort of weird physics-altering magic to make himself look strong and look like he's flying and look like he's doing all of these things, right?
This is your opinion, not canon.
This is my opinion, not canon, but it makes a lot more sense than anything else. He is altering the laws of physics and reality. That's why he's able to pick up a helicopter by one of its skids. Instead of having that skid just collapse under its own weight, he's altering physics. You know, it's not just the strength of the individual to pick up an object by an, you know, that helicopter would have ripped off of that skid and fallen in the, you know, fallen
away.
Well,
he has to push against something.
No,
like in order to exert a force on something else.
It's the structural integrity of the object he's picking up.
Yeah, and I agree with you.
It's like you trying to pick up one of your kids by their ear.
Yeah.
It won't work. You'll rip your kid's ear off.
100% with what you're saying. In fact, there's even sequences where he's flying with Lois. They're together. There's really, he's not only is he able to help her fly while she's next to him, but even the air temperature around her is modified. So that she doesn't
freeze to death while flying, yes.
Well, yeah, at 10,000 feet, you would be gasping for air. Well, maybe not completely gasping, but the air would be thinner, and it would be very cold.
Also, when she falls out of a building, he's able to fly. He's flying in the opposite direction that she's falling, and he catches her, and she's perfectly fine. In reality, he would have, you know, if he had reached out his arms to catch her, he would have cut her into 3 Lois chunks.
Yes,
and instead of cutting her into 3 Lois chunks, he catches her gently, right? No. He's altering the laws of physics.
Normally, you need a really good bungee cord to slow your descent first.
Yes, slow you down very carefully.
Exactly. You can't just abruptly stop because that would be too much force upon you. Yeah, it's bad.
So what
he would like slice and dice her. It's not like his arms are sharp or anything, but
no, at the speeds they're going, well, maybe not slice and dice her, but definitely would have shattered bones, and she would not.
I mean, yes, it would hurt, but like, yes, you know, terminology is fast, but it's not like that fast.
But anyways,
can I add something? Oh, unless you got more, go ahead, Gary.
No. Regardless, I'm saying is that he's altering the laws of physics in the area around him to make it seem like that's what he's doing. Maybe he's not doing it consciously. Maybe he's doing unconsciously. But that is what he's doing. That's why he's able to do these things, most especially in the golden age of Superman. You don't see that in more modern representations of Superman. They tend to incorporate reality a little bit more. Maybe it's just that people pay attention to that stuff more these days. You know, people are a little bit more educated on what, you know, structural components are actually capable of doing.
Yeah. Now, the thing about him is that he comes from the planet Krypton, which is an extremely advanced civilization. But they live on a planet that has extremely high gravity, probably has many other things on it that we would just instantly die, probably. We were there. But they're able to live because of how their bodies are. They're somehow superior to ours. And so he comes from that environment to Earth where here everything's easy. Gravity is much less. The probably other things involved with that are a lot easier. And so he has super abilities, and they explain it in a very simple way at the beginning of this movie.
Highly advanced Kryptonian society, which which pretty much ceases to exist because nobody looks out a window until the sun's about to swallow the planet.
Well, they don't go into the science.
We don't believe you're blah, 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 blah. You're what they say. We get the data, but we don't
believe your conclusions.
Yes, that's the word, conclusion. It's like, oh, well, here, let's solve this. Let's open this window. Gee, is the sun bigger than it was yesterday?
No, she says that the planet is just taking a different orbit. It's shifting orbit. So they had an explanation.
Again,
they knew something was happening, but they just didn't want to believe what Kyla
I mean, to be fair, wouldn't like a planet changing orbit also be pretty catastrophic? Like, say the Earth changed orbit just a little bit. That would be horrific.
A, everybody'd notice, and B, everybody'd be freaking out. Well, not everybody.
But remember, this is Krypton. This is not Earth. People. Earth, where it's like a gentle cradle that keeps everything just in that right spot for life. This is Krypton. Advanced gravity. They could probably withstand things that we couldn't hope to. So maybe a little bit of a shift in the orbit is like, no big deal. So we'll have a longer summer. No big deal. But yeah.
Well, at least in this representation of Krypton, they did not seem to be all that superhuman, I guess.
On Krypton, they're not. So they're not superhuman because of the environment. They're not. They're just like normal people.
I'm talking Man of Steel. In other representations, it was a massively advanced civilization, and the destruction of the planet came not because the sun, but because they had been mining the planet's core, which, is stupid, but, that's what they wanted to do.
I like it better in this movie where they keep it a little bit ambiguous so that you're not actually filling in all the blanks. The basic idea is that they were arrogant. This advanced civilization of enlightenment and being good to each other, they eliminated wars, they were peaceful people, but even then, arrogance and being naive about things, it can still creep in even to an enlightened people like the Kryptonians. I think that's what I get from it.
I don't know if they had grown past war, considering the fact
that's true.
They had a general.
They're very peaceful. Based on what we see, they're very peaceful, but they still have bad actors. You're right. That is a good point.
So I will bring up one more thing before the long conversation between Jeff and Gary about Man of Steel kicks off. I'm very confused about Lex Luthor's about how Lex Luthor arrived at the high about how Lex Luthor, how do I phrase this? About how Lex Luthor arrived at the idea that a piece of Krypton would be harmful to Superman because they shared a radioactive wave or something. It's like they have him try to what's the word? They have him arrive at this conclusion in such a way to make him seem smart, but at the same time I'm sitting here like going off of that logic.
Where are the real parallels? Yeah.
That's like seeing if I go to another planet, like a piece of Earth would be harmful to me. It's like, rock, right? Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, BJ. Is very hokey. This is one of those reasons why I didn't score this movie higher. One of the many. Lex Luthor tries to act like he's the smartest person in the room, and it just feels like just doesn't feel that smart.
I think he got
very contrivey. Very
maybe some of the dialogue and some of the parallels in his conversation, but the personality, though, I think is gold. the personality Gene Hackman put together for Lex Luthor.
I'm not saying it's not a very not a very entertaining character, but like Gary said, most of his plans seemed more contrived than genius. Like his entire plan to sabotage a nuclear convoy is to crash a car, and then every single person in this nuclear convoy looks at anything but the missile.
They haven't seen anything cool all day, BJ. It was the first thing that actually happened. So they wanted to go out and
there's like 20 men in this convoy. Not one of them keep an eye on the missile.
Exactly.
Yes, you'd think that at least the general or the officers in charge would have ordered Privates Skippy and Doodad to go sit and watch the missile to make sure that no one walks up to the missile programming thing.
It was the 70s,
because
Gary.
The missile program.
BJ, the 70s,
this
man.
Was in the middle of the Cold War. They're more paranoid about nukes then than we are now.
Or BJ,
it was during the Cold War.
Or BJ, that they would have double, triple, or quadruple checked the coordinates inputted into the missiles before launch. Because those things are kind of important.
I mean, nowadays, if someone parked a truck out in front of a nuclear convoy, they would blow up the truck.
They would ram right through it. They
would all stop and say, "Hey, what's going on here?" They were like, "Hey, there's something blocking the truck. Blow it up!" Anyway.
Seriously.
Yeah, also the missile
right,
would not even... You couldn't even touch the missile. It would probably be inside of a truck. You couldn't even, walk up and open a panel. It's true. But hey, it's Superman. It's a movie. It's the 1970s. The audience bought it just fine. But it also shows the villains are comedic. That's one thing I wanted to discuss. This is an example of where you make the villains in the movie also the comic relief at the same time, which a lot of movies pull off, and when you pull it off well, it's great. It adds a lot to it. So Gene Hackman is both funny and sinister, and the help he gets, the people that he surrounds him are comical to me because he doesn't just get smart people. He likes people that almost pander to his ego, that he loves to, even though he's so awful to Otis, I think that part of his personality is that he just loves picking on Otis, and he loves just being upset at him. And Miss Tessbacher is there, who questions him all the time, but I think he loves just having people around him that he can push around, and he complains a lot too.
I mean, I think we know why they have Miss Tessbacher there.
For her engaging conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, for her engaging conversation.
Her personality.
Definitely
she's basically she's his very pretty girlfriend that he completely ignores and who he doesn't pay much attention to her all, which is all fitting to his personality, I think. But, anyway, so I like the villains. Oh.
So
can I say one thing? Is it my turn to
yes,
a small? Okay. Can I just say, you guys are pointing out really a lot of things that are good, but
we are?
Yeah. But as far as going back to that Superman thing where he bends space in order to fly, I think that's fine, Gary. There's really nothing in there that really contradicts anything in the movie. If he's somehow able to bend space, which is what gravity is, it's the fabric of space being bent into a different shape, then if he can rebend it a different way, then objects won't fall. They will follow Newton's first law, and they'll just stay still instead of falling.
No, he's straight up changing the laws of physics to suit his needs.
And a Kryptonian, a Kryptonian that understood the laws of physics far better than we would, might not only have powers, but even knowledge that could be way beyond the knowledge of this world. So what looks like magic to us could be something that the Kryptonians understood would work well on Earth. May not work on the planet Krypton because of its circumstances, but it works on Earth. And you see that in the movie. It's not just that he has these powers. He also has the knowledge of the planet Krypton, but also 28 galaxies that Krypton was managed to explore and somehow gain knowledge from. He has all of that knowledge with him, and he can't share it with humans because of that rule his father gave him. You are to be an example. You're not to meddle in human affairs. And he
seems kind of silly.
Seems kind of silly.
I mean,
I don't think it's silly at all. I think it's brilliant. I think it's very important. It's like ties into the Star Trek Prime Directive. It's like you don't actually want to do things for people to the point where they're not ready to learn something yet, and you introduce something to them that they're not ready to really learn and to be responsible for. Knowledge is power.
Yeah, the Prime
you give them
Directive
knowledge
only
they're not
works.
ready for.
The Prime Directive only works when everybody follows it.
I 100% agree with that. That's the whole point of making the rule.
So I'm gonna interject here for a hot second
Go ahead.
because this was something else I was also kind of confused on. So, like when the hologram of Jor-El is talking to Clark or Kal-El, whoever you want to call him, he says that, by the time you've seen this, I've been dead for many thousands of your years. But later on, Lex Luthor's like, well, it says in the article that his planet blew up like back in the 40s. It's like, okay, which...
Yep, I agree. The timelines are completely
which
wrong.
is it?
Yeah, maybe Lex Luthor is simply wrong. There could be that. He is just a human.
No. Okay, so what it could be...
Or...
It could be that he was correct and incorrect at the same time. What it could be is... No, hear me out. What could have happened...
start doing like the... What's it called? Like the twin paradox?
Yeah, no, that's like, it's relativity, right? It could be that he was thousands of light years away, and it took him thousands of years to travel to Earth, right? But because his vessel was traveling at close to light speed, he didn't age, right? And it took the light of the star exploding thousands of years to get from the Krypton system to Earth, but the explosion, the time between when this explosion was seen on Earth and the time and the present was 48 years or so, or whatever. It was just a few years previous to that, right?
And I do think, yeah, I agree, Gary. But also, I think there's what the writing probably should have been is that the meteorite was found in 1938 would have made more sense.
Yeah, I was going to say the thing that kind of blows hole in that.
How do you know when the planet exploded?
Is the meteorite.
You would need an astronomer with a telescope who saw it. Like, oh, look, it exploded. Let's do the math for how long it took the light to reach here. And then
Well, I think the idea is that Lex Luthor knows all this stuff about Superman because Superman has no concept of information security and just spouts everything in his interview with Lois.
Admittedly, he is trying to impress a young lady, and men do stupid things when trying to impress women.
That is an excellent point, Gary. Well said. There was a pretty girl there.
He would not be the first man to say there's an entire series of movies and cartoons released in the 1940s to the U.S. soldiers with basically the concept of keep your mouth shut.
Loose lips sink ships.
Exactly, because it happened too many times, and the soldiers they'd spout all kinds of things to women. And then, not all of those women, but some of those women would report to other people what they'd heard. And that would cause bad things to happen. So, yeah.
Nowadays, they don't even do it to impress girls. They do it to impress random people on internet forums.
Exactly. So...
But the thing...
So,
yep.
yeah.
Yep. Also, Superman achieved something in this movie, something that most men couldn't do. He took a girl on a date without spending any money at all. All he did was fly her around the city. Back.
Jeff.
I mean, he wouldn't have a place to even keep his wallet somewhere.
First off...
That's Superman's real weakness. No pockets.
First off, Jeff, first point I'd like to make is that this particular Superman, and in fact almost all of the Supermans that have ever been depicted, are all played by extremely handsome men. This one was Christopher Reeve. Other ones have been played by other very handsome men. Yep. So there's point one.
So that's point one.
Handsome,
which would explain...
attractive people don't need to spend near as much money, is what I'm saying.
Yes. Okay.
That is point one. Point number two. He... What is it? He's able to fly. You know, if you can pick up the girl and fly her around... It doesn't have to be superpowers. If you can put her in a helicopter and fly her around, or a private jet or whatever, you know, the girl's going to be super impressed. So you don't need to do all the fancy other stuff, right? You know, if you just say, come to the roof of your apartment, I'm going to pick you up there. There's a helipad on the roof of your apartment. And then you pick the girl up and fly her. You could be taking her to McDonald's. Girl wouldn't care. She'd be like... He flew me to a restaurant and we had an amazing time and whatever.
I'm gonna
some
compose
girls
a really
would still
cheesy
complain.
poem in my head about this.
Some girls would still complain. Then he only took me to McDonald's?
Yeah, whatever. Right, Jeff.
I have
right.
more than that.
You say that. You say that. I'm just saying, lady'd probably be impressed.
I know. But if all men could fly and it wasn't a big deal, I think that would be like Lois personally, it would be a terrible date. Because she'd probably report how she was dropped at one point and fell. And
yeah,
but
catch her. That's kind of the point that all men cannot fly.
Yep.
Ergo, it is impressive.
It is very impressive. And he managed, yep. The whole thing is a good scene. It's very iconic, too.
Yeah,
for a lot of people.
It's
iconic. Like like I said before, it is definitely very carried by the John Williams score, and as I may have not mentioned before, I rolled my eyes really hard during the whole "Can you read my mind" poem. I'm like, she's a poet, and she didn't know it. She makes her rhyme every time.
Anyways,
not all movies are just action scenes, though. There's good to have some different kinds of things. And
yes, but in my opinion, at least, the poem was still pretty cringe.
Cringe. So, BJ, let me tell you about the one you missed.
It's not meant for our demographic, I'll say that.
The one I missed?
Let me tell you about the one you missed. The Man of Steel that you haven't watched.
Yes, I have not seen that.
So, imagine this movie, the one you just watched.
Yes.
But with better graphics.
No,
and imagine
I
where it doesn't
Go
have...
ahead, Gary. Go ahead. I'm
just
sorry.
Gonna put my microphone down. I'm going to let you guys go.
No.
Jeff,
I was wrong. Go ahead.
You had your moment.
You had.
Now it's my
moment.
True.
Go ahead.
It's got better graphics, BJ. It's got
better graphics.
It doesn't have that whole cheesy date portion of it. Instead, it has more relevant plot the entire time. And also, it's got, instead of having physics breaking stuff every 5 seconds, well, obviously people flying and people doing, strong stuff, whatever, right? But if they're doing strong stuff, the structural integrity of said, like for instance, if he wants to pick something up, he actually has to pick the thing up, and then he can't just grab one little portion of it. Like if he wants to pick up a truck, he can't just pick up the side mirror and pick up the truck. No, he would actually have to get under the structure of the body of the truck and lift it there, right? And then even then there might be structural damage because he's moving it around in ways that are it's not meant to be moved around. Yes, it's the movie that they would have wanted to make if they had had access to, the capabilities of modern Hollywood.
So prior to you guys starting to throw haymakers at each other over this, I will bring up the one thing I have seen about Man of Steel. And again, I have seen this out of context. So maybe it's played differently in the movie. But from clips I've seen,
yes,
they play John Kent, Papa Kent,
yes,
in a very different light. In that he's saying that Clark should hide his powers more rather than help people. Like, I guess there's a scene where he's like fairly young, where he saves a bus from like going to some sort of body of water, I believe. And then during a talk after, at least in the clip I've seen, again, I've not seen this clip in context. But John Kent says something along the lines of maybe you says something to the extent of maybe you should have not saved that bus in order to protect your
identity.
Yeah.
He does do that. Now, admittedly, in this one, he kind of does it, but not to that extent, right? And also in this one, he dies of a heart attack, which there's no way Superman could stop that, versus in the Man of Steel one, he dies because of a tornado, which he could have saved him at any moment, but he was like, no, don't save me. Really? Yeah, that's kind of dumb. But apart from that one stupid sequence, it is in my opinion, well, I'm not going to say the much better movie, because that's to say that the original movie makers wouldn't have made the same movie if they hadn't been able to, right? I can't judge a movie for the time it was made in. What I'm saying is I can't judge a movie for the time it was made in as compared to a modern movie, right? It's made in two different eras. But I am going to say that this is the movie that's made in the modern era with the modern capabilities, and also kind of gets things a little bit better on the, like for instance, there's a moment when an oil rig is falling apart and he kind of holds it together, but it's still falling apart. But he holds it together long enough for the people to escape and everybody survives, right? Except he gets blown into the ocean and they think he's dead, except, well, he's still Superman, so he is obviously clearly alive. Small explosions don't kill him like that. But anyways, so Jeff, you're about to start throwing haymakers at me because I have dared to say that something could possibly be either equal to or better that was made in the modern age than something that was made in the classic age, right?
Well, to be honest, I haven't seen Man of Steel for years, so it's cloudy in my head. I don't think I can really debate fully, but I will say that when I watched it,
embrace your hatred, Jeff. Do it.
Give in to your
hate new things, Jeff. Just hate them new. Hate the new things. Make us watch Cabaret again.
Embrace the dark side. Make BJ find another bad, good old movie.
So
Unleash the
I actually
Cabaret
think
side of the Force.
I think Superman Returns was better than Man of Steel by far, as as getting to really what Superman
I've not seen that one either, so I also have no opinion on that.
Man of Steel was... I don't have good specifics for you, because if I had known we were doing this debate, I would have been more prepared, but I want to say that Superman just didn't have the right personality in that movie. Superman is positive, upbeat,
Admittedly,
says short phrases.
Jeff,
you notice they do so. Yes.
Admittedly, you are kind of right in that. Now I'm going to say something else that's going to get the entire internet angry at me.
Yay.
Okay.
But admittedly, you are right, Jeff, with the attitude, because in Man of Steel, he was played by a British man. So you're right. He didn't quite get the idea completely correct.
I wouldn't blame his nationality on it, though. A lot of British actors do really well with all sorts of things. It was the writing. It wasn't even the actor. I think it's just the writing. The character was written wrong.
He wanted to be dark. They wanted a little bit more of an introspective Superman, and I get that.
Man of Steel was that late aughts, sometime
2013.
2013.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like peak Edge is.
Yeah, edgy is cool.
Yeah.
To generalize my criticism, they're trying to make Superman too much like Batman. They're not the same hero. They're different.
He's still very hopeful in the movie, right? He's still very bright and cheerful and hopeful. And he also gets across the idea that he will do the right thing no matter what. He also gets that idea across to the people, because what we get in Man of Steel, as opposed to this older Superman depiction, is people don't trust him, right? Which is much more of a realistic interpretation, right? There's realism in this new one, where people don't trust him because he's not. They at least they don't think he's from around here, even though he repeatedly tells him he grew up in the United States. That does bring up another one, the alternative version of him. BJ, have you ever heard of the Red Sun? Have you ever heard of that one?
I've heard about it. I don't know details. I know it's like what if Superman had crash landed in I don't know, it was like Russia in particular, or just the Soviet Union in general.
I think Soviet Union at the height, like late 70s Soviet Union. So this is like them at the height of their power or something like that. Or mid 50s or so. I can't remember. But it was basically he crashes in Russia in the middle of the height of communism. So now he's like communist Superman, and he's not for, truth, justice, and the American way. He's for something completely different, and so it makes for a very interesting storyline.
Is this a comic book?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a whole comic book line.
All right.
Yep. The Superman Red Sun, and it's very interesting. But anyways, back to the good, happy Superman. This one definitely had but there's so many, like BJ was saying, there's the villains in it were so kind of quirky,
anticlimactic.
I can't.
This is not a dark movie.
When I started this, I couldn't get out of my head the entire time. The internet has done this so many times where they'll do animations or skits or whatever of Superman going into Lex Luthor's lair, and then Lex Luthor saying, "I've got missiles and they're going to be launched," and then Superman breaks out of Lex Luthor's lair, comes back with the missiles and says, "Is it these missiles you're looking for? Is it these ones you said I couldn't possibly catch? But I've got them right here. It's impossible. You said I couldn't catch them." And then Lex Luthor says,
Rather
"Yes,
than,
that's the missiles."
Waiting around and listening to dialogue.
And then Lex Luthor's like, yes, those are the missiles. And Superman's like, "You're a sick man." And then flies away with the missiles, right?
Well,
so it's like
I feel like, so how do I phrase this? So I guess in theory, a good Superman story since Superman is so powerful, they're in. Okay, so like, I guess I shouldn't say in like all Superman stories because obviously Superman has like his own rogues gallery, and like he does straight up die at one point. He gets killed, but like it seems like a good Superman story should be at least less him overcoming the bad guy, because obviously he's going to, because he is so much more powerful. But it should be. I'm about to pull a Jeff here. I'm about to get deep. Like a good Superman story is less about him overcoming the obstacle, and more about how he overcomes the obstacle while retaining his I guess humanity, right?
Yeah, he doesn't,
because like what should be interesting about the character is that he is this all-powerful being who chooses to be human, I guess, right?
And I've heard there's been a lot of thought process about why Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent are much more important characters to those particular superheroes than Superman and Batman. Why those are the important aspects of these characters, and why everybody pays attention to them, because it's like,
Oh, I don't know about that. It seems like
it shows that. Go ahead.
It seems like in most. I'm sorry. It seems like in most cases I've seen, or at least in regards to Batman, most people just kind of, oh well, Bruce Wayne's the mask and Batman's the real person or whatever, right? I guess they kind of get away from that in like the I guess I can't say new Batman movies anymore, but like the Dark Knight trilogy, because it ends with, I guess we're going to spoiler a total different movie here. Are you guys okay with that? Have you guys seen the?
Yeah, I'm good.
I've seen those.
So I know some people don't like the ultimate ending to that trilogy, because he chooses to be Bruce Wayne instead of Batman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in the end, he's able to put the mantle down.
You never close the story like that. You want to keep it open. It's part of the mysteries. You make it possible that they can go on. Yeah.
I don't think it's that. I think it's that a lot of the hard Batman fans have the idea that Bruce Wayne is the mask and that Batman is the real person, right? So
yes, which both statements are true in different ways, but yeah.
Anyway, my brain got derailed. Gary, you were going to say something, so go ahead.
So I do have a question here. So when Superman is flying Lois Lane around, he flies her past the Statue of Liberty, and it doesn't seem like they've gone very far, which begs the question, where's Metropolis?
I think Metropolis is like essentially New York, right?
No, Gotham is supposed to be New York. So,
like, I did have,
New York doesn't exist.
I will admit, while I was watching the movie, I did have that same train of thought, because I'm like, well, I thought Gotham was supposed to be New York City, but then, so I don't know.
Gotham is a combination of Chicago and New York, and it's a completely made up city. But
yes, they are both completely, they are both made up. Made up cities,
but if you're the Adam West Batman, you actually do all the filming in L.A., so you're not even in Gotham. You are in Gotham, but it looks like Los Angeles.
It's like, technically speaking, this is only like the third superhero movie that we've talked about, because we did Batman and we did Unbreakable.
Yeah.
And it's only those two, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the Batman movie. What a marvelous train wreck that film is. Holy cow.
That movie needs to be watched by everyone, though.
You guys are talking about Batman, because I didn't review this one with you guys. It was Batman.
Yes, the Adam West Batman.
The Adam West
movie.
Batman. because I know there's a more recent Batman, the absolute most recent Batman. I believe they are referring to him as Robert Pattinson.
I have not seen the Batman.
It's actually kind of good. I recommend it sometime. Maybe we'll
Can't talk about Superman again, without also talking about Batman at some point. Well, it just happens.
Well,
it's fine.
Well, they do come from the same comic universe. I will admit I have not seen like pretty much any of the DC films. I think the only one I've seen is Wonder Woman because I watched it on an airplane, and to be fair, that is a very good movie. I've heard less good things about the Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah, it is the sad inferior copy.
And I've not seen Man of Steel. I've not seen any of the Justice League movies. I seem to recall hearing good things about the first Shazam, but outside of that, I have not heard very many good things about the DC movies as a whole.
A lot of them really crashed and burned.
Well, they tried to be the first 3 phases of the Avengers, except all at once.
Yes, unfortunately, that is a fairly good summation of it.
And like, to be fair, the Marvel movies have pretty much gone down the same road. It seems like very few people like the new Marvel movies as compared to the older Marvel movies. Again, I don't think I've seen the Marvel movies since like Doctor Strange. I'm out of the Caped Crusader loop, I guess. I can't talk today. Good grief.
Well, maybe
payments are fun sometimes.
I have two more things to say, and then I'm done. Because I know you guys are probably before you guys completely burn out.
I'll let Jeff speak then. Yes.
Okay, so the second one I had was, I just want to say, one of the things that this movie did differently is the original Superman, which was a TV show and one film back in the 1950s. Superman was a superhero when he had his cape on, but when he was living as Clark Kent, he was just a mild-mannered reporter. He was not a nerd, awkward, strange, somebody that couldn't handle normal conversations. He wasn't at all like that. He was just mild-mannered. He was extremely plain, and that I actually have watched all of the original TV shows from the 50s, and he's not a nerd at all. He's just a very ordinary person. And then what they did differently, though, in this movie is they added a comedic element to his character. He's not just mild-mannered. He is extremely... He's funny. It's just his entire performance. Christopher Reeve's performance in this is just, I think, one of the best parts about the movie. Just that he's nerdy and that he likes it. He likes playing Clark Kent. He likes being somebody that nobody cares about. And the brilliant part of that is that the point behind becoming Clark Kent was to keep a secret identity so that his enemies would not use people he knew in his real life against him. And what better way to do that than to hide as a personality that nobody would see as Superman? So Clark Kent is the opposite of Superman. He is everything different. Superman is clever. He's straight to the point, but he's also extremely good at responding to people's feelings. And
but Jeff,
Clark Kent doesn't understand what's going on around him. And it's funny. I like the whole contrast.
So nobody sees this person because of a pair of glasses?
No, because of personality. The personality throws them off.
There is a part towards the end of the movie where it's Lois and Jimmy Olsen talking, And somehow they get to the point of, we've never seen Clark and Superman in the same place. No, that's so dumb.
There is something called the gray man, which is a philosophy in where if you want to blend in so that people don't think about you, you develop a character that is something that doesn't stand out at all. That's part of the mild-mannered reporter, that he's not standing out whatsoever. And I think they take it even further with Clark Kent, and it's both entertaining for the movie, but I also think there's a level of genius to being this absurd person, and I like it. I have one more thought, but you guys can add anything else before I go on.
No, you're on a roll. Keep going.
Okay, so one more big thought. The thing I love most about this movie is the planet Krypton, and Marlon Brando's performance as Superman's dad, and as Jor-El. And the thing that gets me about it is that Krypton has always been portrayed many different shows. The Man of Steel did it. Superman Returns, I think, did it. There's TV shows did it. But I always loved this one the best, and it's very different from the others. And the reason is because I think the way technology advances, it's often in a very magical way. Like the lives we live today, people never would have even fathomed them 1,000 years ago. They had their candles and their cold nights, and the temperature was something that they couldn't do much against. Now we have screens that glow with information. We have communication that's very fast and instantaneous. And we have a global supply chain that delivers goods to us constantly. There's no going for 8 hours through the woods looking for an animal to hunt. It's like the way we live is just so incredibly different. And I honestly think the thing that fascinates me about Krypton is, life on Earth, according to how most people believe, it started 3.5 billion years ago with a group of microbes in the ocean. And then after 1.5 billion years, it changes to small, creeping, like plants, and then another few 100 million years, finally you get creatures, and then another few 100 million years, finally you get to a vertebrae, and you're beginning to see...
Okay, can I stop? Can I stop? You're literally going over the entire history of the universe, Jeff. I need to stop you. I need to stop you here, okay? Yes.
Okay, right, I can give you the short.
I'm drawing.
Version.
I'll let you go. Say whatever you want. But if you're literally going to list out the entire history of the universe, I've got to stop you there.
No, this one's important to me.
I believe what Gary means to say is cut to the chase.
Cut to the chase.
I know. You're just like the Kryptonians. We don't care. It's in the data. We don't care. Your conclusions are wrong. No. Okay.
Jeff, cut to the chase.
All right. I'm sorry. You guys don't want to... Okay. I should have mentioned this like an hour ago.
History, primordial ooze. Cut to the chase.
My point is that if you look at it, you see that the evolutionary leaps keep getting shorter and shorter and shorter if you look at the evolutionary timescale. Whereas now, humans have only been around like 150,000 years. The question I would ask, what would happen with a group of humans if they had another 3.5 billion years to evolve? Like, what are the possibilities? And the answer is we don't really know. If you had 7 billion years of evolution, what would you have? And so when a lot of people look at the planet Krypton and they see these people with incredible abilities who are living in this extreme environment of gravity and vast amounts of radiation or other things, they think, well, that's just magic. But really, it all, based on what we believe is real or not, is completely based upon what we know. And so, is it even possible that a planet Krypton, like Krypton, could even exist? It's perhaps possible, but it's a matter of how much we know. And so what I really love about that planet is just how different everything is. There's no plants. There's no, hills or grass. It's different. And why? Probably because they're able to absorb energy. They don't have to eat or do other things. They just are able to absorb the vast amount of energy that is in the universe. And so the whole thing is fascinating. I like that instead of just making a planet like Earth, but just a little bit more space age like, they made it just completely different. Like it's something that we wouldn't even fathom at all. And that's what I liked. So it's the coolest looking one, and it has models from the 1970s, classic special effects. Anyway, that's what I had to say.
I'll agree to disagree on that particular one. But
so Gary, how do you feel about the fact it took Jeff like 10 minutes to come up with Clark's Law?
Clark's Law?
Yeah, Arthur C. Clarke's Law.
I believe it's Clark's Law.
It is Arthur C. Clarke. Yeah, you're right.
Explain that. What are you talking about?
Clark's Law is any Gary, do you want to explain it?
Any technology that is sufficiently advanced will resemble magic. There's an alternative version of that one that was suspected later on, after Clarke, which was any magic which is sufficiently organized will begin to resemble technology. But yes.
So yes, congratulations, Jeff. You arrived at that a couple of decades late.
And after 10 minutes of explanation and one aborted attempt to re-explain the entirety of history from the primordial ooze. That's Jeff's final thoughts, BJ. What are your final thoughts?
Oh, boy. My final thoughts are, once again, we took a movie we all generally liked and just kind of dunked on it for an hour. Why do we keep doing this?
Well, they say that you hurt the things you like, right? So I mean, you have to nitpick it. And I'll admit, fair, I was only dunking on it by saying that there are better versions of this movie out there.
And to be fair, I don't think this particular discussion stood much of a chance, considering it started out with Gary saying that Superman is a magic
reality bending entity as opposed to someone who's really strong and fast. Yes.
But advanced technology seems
that is my supposition as opposed to the stated.
Oh yeah, this sure was a discussion. I get the feeling Gary's trying to wrap up. So I guess we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
Okay. So
That was my final thoughts. Jeff has said his final thoughts. BJ?
Jeff has said his final thoughts. Well, if you want to hear more about Jeff's final thought, crack on a history textbook and go to the very beginning and read from there.
Yes.
You'll get to Jeff's point eventually.
In the beginning.
I already made that joke. Anyway. Yeah, so... Yeah. Superman, it's a movie. 1978. I'm BJ. With me was Jeff and Gary. If you made it this far, I'm very impressed, because I think this whole episode was kind of a train wreck. It could just be me and the fact that I was having trouble talking. But anyway, we'll see you next time for whatever it is we talk about. Primordial Ooze.